Exactly. So do you know, if you really get into a man's mind, is it really that primitive when it comes to how they see women on a fundamental level?
No, it's not an all or nothing thing. I think look, it's when you get into sexual arousal, like we're animals. And so there's some like very base primitive stuff that happens post-sexual arousal. I think, but just because something can potentially happen post-sexual arousal doesn't mean that that's what you always think or feel. Like this is something that's actually, if you ever look into like, you don't know what glory holes are. So if you ever decide to get into BDSM, what you'll discover is that, they talk about this a lot, that, just because you are into something during sex doesn't mean that you are that way outside of sex. So like if you're a masochist and you like to be dominated during sex, that doesn't give the person permission to dominate you outside of sex. Like they're two different realms.
So separate the realms.
Because it really is like people get into things, it activates like kind of the most animalistic part of your brain. And so there's stuff down there that kicks in. And I imagine most men relate to this, that afterwards you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Drew, tell us more.
Well, okay. Actually, I'd like to get off glory holes and BDSM real quick.
Please do.
Go back to your point.
What were we talking about?
So, like the over-sexualizing.
Yeah, the over-sexualizing. That's more important. And I would imagine the use of pornography and the availability would just activate that side of the brain so much.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
the dating apps too, social media, it all feeds into that. Pornography is a big one too. I'm a weirdo. I don't know. I don't use dating apps. I'm pretty much off social media. I don't use porn.
Yeah.
And so
amazing. You don't use porn?
No, I
so
don't.
happy to you.
Drew is
he's a gem.
What I've found though from
most
that
eligible
is,
bachelor in podcasting.
Yeah, no.
I'm convinced at this point that Mark started this podcast just to get me a girlfriend.
Well, you should. You deserve a good woman.
Ladies.
You deserve a good woman.
Submit your applications.
I'm gonna look.
What I've noticed from that though, and I don't know, it's kind of all three of those things: dating apps, porn, social media.
Yeah.
I now have gotten that little voice you were talking about. Like men have this, I want to be a higher status man in the eyes of other men even too. I just don't give a shit anymore.
Great.
Really. Maybe that's part of that's probably getting older as well.
Yeah.
But I've just noticed that I have a far greater need for connection with somebody now before I'm even remotely attracted to them. So younger women, just it's not.
Yeah.
I can't
And
have
I
a
get a lot of
conversation
hate
with you.
because people are always like, "Oh, you're just jealous." I'm really not jealous. I'm very happy in my relationship. And if my husband did leave me for a 19-year-old, it wouldn't make me jealous of the 19-year-old. It'd make me look at him in a different way.
And be like, "What the hell, dude?
What's going on in your life that this is what you've decided to do?" So it's nothing in that sense. It's just more of a sense of what men think when they walk into a room with a woman that's 20 years younger and smoking hot while they're not. They think everyone's thinking, wow, but what we're really thinking is, how are you stupid enough to not realize why she's here?
Yes,
we're not thinking, wow, you're so cool. We're thinking, wow, you're really rich. Other women might look at you thinking, okay, I can also use and abuse him. And other men are looking at you like, oh, you're probably really enjoying it, but how much is she? How much is she? And they're probably thinking they have a chance. So you devalue your status, if anything, rather than enhance it. But they've got because the outward statements will be like, wow, she's super hot. They're looking for those outward statements rather than the internal dialogue people are having about them.
Well, and you raise an interesting point, which is the perception of other men, right? Because a lot of these men who say like, no, you don't get it, you're just jealous or whatever. Yeah. Part of that is that all of the men that they hang out with think the same way as them.
That's what it is, yeah.
They don't realize that the majority of the male population thinks that's immature and stupid. Why would you ever do that? But the reason they're not exposed to us is because it's like, and this has happened many times where I have met a guy who is very impressive professionally, seems very intelligent, has a lot of interesting things to say. And he's like bringing escorts around or dating a girl who's like less than half his age. And I lose all respect for him.
I mean,
because it says so much about his character and his self-control and his composure and what he values in life. And it just makes me realize, I'm like, okay, this is not a serious person.
And also their emotional intelligence. I can't imagine a man feeling, I don't know how he has to block out that part of his brain where he doesn't care if she enjoys it, if she wants it, if she's lubricated, none of that matters as long as he's achieved his goal. Wouldn't part of the enjoyment of the sexual intercourse be the fact that she wants you and she's so aroused by you, but having to buy her arousal just seems that you are almost compensating her for this bad experience she's about to have.
Yeah.
So it's indicative of how poor you think your performance is. That's how as a woman sees it. We see it, you must be terrible at this, and that's why you have to compensate women for their time and for being with you.
But I think part of that is it comes back to the power thing.
Power.
Because it's what arouses them is kind of the fact that it doesn't matter if she's into it.
Oh, wow. Men are disgusting. Sorry. You guys are so weird.
We're turning to Sadia against men. She's like, I don't want to coach these guys anymore.
I think I've just been so naive a little bit with this area of like, because my advice initially was I'm a very traditional woman and I come from a Muslim background. So my advice was always like, what's the problem? You can have a great guy. You know, you'd be loyal to him and faithful and just be good to his family. Like, what's the problem? It's easy to get a man. As I've been working with more and more men, I realize that the underlying trait is none of that matters until you sleep with them in the way that they like. And that's what I realize, and that's what I... Sometimes, yeah. Or he has low sex drive, in which case then you're great. Yeah, then you've got nothing to worry about. But if he has a high sex drive and you're doing all of those things without access to you, it doesn't actually... it doesn't actually matter as much.
It also depends on the man. It also depends on his maturity level and his, it's just...
so there's a lot of components.
I have a high sex drive. When I was younger, I didn't really know how to manage that. Yeah. And I think I let it manage me.
Right.
And as I got older, I learned how to manage it.
Right.
And, now I'm married and I manage it. Like it's not a problem anymore. Like at a certain point as a man, I think most men have to make this decision of just like, you can't keep prioritizing it. Like you're just not going to build a good, stable, interesting life for yourself.
It just can't be a priority forever.
If you're following your dick around everywhere. Like it's not a sustainable life strategy. So at some point you just have to decide like, you know what? Sex just needs to matter less than it used to.
Exactly.
And that's fine.
There's a lot of compartmentalization too that men do. Like you've kind of already mentioned that as well. And I think that's how they can separate a lot of those areas. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure how that works out developmentally or whatever, or if something has happened to them or if they're just how they were raised. I don't know. But I think men are just really good at compartmentalizing this part of their lives. Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
And a lot of the inability to empathize, to connect emotionally, to humanize with women is directly proportional to the objectification of themselves. Like this is something I used to write about and like men... Like I used to try to explain to men. I was like, objectifying women is bad, but it's not just bad because it's bad for the women. It's bad for you. Yeah. When you see women as status objects, you aren't just hurting them. You're hurting yourself because you are basing your entire emotional life around status objects, around collecting trophies and achievements.
That's a very great point.
To impress your guy friends who honestly don't really give a shit because they're emotionally stunted as well. So it's just a bad game to be playing.
Yeah, they're objectifying themselves, usually financially as well. That they really are just a financial component. So they're volunteering for that objectification. Both parties are in those circumstances.
Yeah. What is the biggest piece of women's dating advice that is wrong in your opinion?
But in terms of the worst piece of advice that women are getting is the narcissistic movement. The movement about how every person you've disagreed with ever in your life is a narcissist, whether that's your mom, your dad, or your ex-partner. Everybody's a narcissist, and they use these buzzwords like gaslighting, breadcrumbing, all of this stuff. So it is the worst piece of advice women have got to. And the reason I say that is 9 times out of 10 when somebody's come to me and said, so-and-so is a narcissist, they are a narcissist themselves. They have a narcissistic desire to be a victim in every situation. They have a narcissistic desire to avoid any accountability, and they have a narcissistic desire for excessive sympathy from the people around them. And so the people who claim that they're victims of narcissists are usually the narcissists themselves. They're just in reverse. They like to be a victim. Real people who've been abused by narcissists will come to me and say, how do I get better? Because my husband says I'm too fat. They're actually trying to please the narcissist. They're so brainwashed by the narcissist that they think they have done nothing right in this relationship. They're awful and they need to improve. But if you're in the end where you're posting memes about a narcissist, you haven't been through narcissistic abuse. You've just been in a bad relationship, which both of you have contributed to equally, I would say. So I think that movement has been really damaging for women.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a quote that I love from David Foster Wallace. He says that evil people don't believe that they're evil. They believe everyone else is evil.
Yeah.
I think you could replace evil with narcissists.
Yeah.
Narcissists don't believe they're narcissists. They believe everyone else is a narcissist.
Exactly that. And it just sets them up for so much failure. There's so much lack of accountability. There's so much digging into like trying to diagnose this person rather than how did I get to this state? How did I choose this person? Why have I chosen this person? And how do I improve and make sure I don't do it again? Instead, they just want to speak to a therapist that will tell them, you are a victim. You have totally chosen badly. You did nothing wrong. How can I cushion you to feel better? And that will be $1,000, please. That's what they want to hear. Are you a successful man who has achieved endless heights in his career? Are you somebody who's absolutely made it in his professional life, but his personal life just doesn't seem to match up? Are you somebody who goes through intense highs in business, but intense lows in your personal relationships? You might be somebody who has been blocking out relationships or entering relationships where you don't feel appreciated or it's lacking the sexual or emotional intimacy that you require. If this sounds like you, then I have a program specifically catered to your needs. I've been helping high-end clients for a really long time and I'm able to identify the exact problems, the exact causes, and the exact solutions. So if this sounds like you, then please feel free to register below your details. Hi guys, welcome back to my Patreon, where every single week you can tune in and get exclusive content. Not only that, but you can also message me anytime and receive a response within 20